Hello there, my name's Brandon and I make pictures out of tiny squares. And I've been watching a lot of the original Dragon Ball series lately, so because of that I've kind of got to get some fan art out of my system. So I'm going to be making a small pixel art version of Kame House, which is this iconic location from the series. And even if you haven't seen the show, you might recognize it anyway, or if not, maybe just appreciate it for being this like warm tropical island vibe kind of piece. If you've watched a few of my time-lapse videos before, you'll know that I usually start by making my pixel art in grayscale first and then adding color later. But for this one I decided to change things up a bit and just find a preset color palette to work from. To find color palettes specifically with pixel art in mind, one of the best sites I know is LowSpec. So I hopped on there to see if there was anything that jumped out to me as having like a strong tropical feel that I'd need for this piece. And scrolling through there I found the Island Joy 16 palette by Kerrie Lake, which was just like the perfect set of colors and the perfect name too. And by the way, shout out to Kerrie real quick. She's a really wicked pixel artist. She's got like a really bright and fun style, and she also has loads of great palettes on LowSpec, so be sure to check out her work. I'll put a few links in the description as well if you want to check her out. So when you're finding the right preset palette to use, you could really take a few different approaches. Like you could find one single mega palette with tons of colors in it just to give you lots of options. Or if you're looking for a bit more restriction, it kind of helps to think about just sorts of color groups or relationships that would be the most important for your piece. Like for this one, I knew I need a few shades of pink for the house, and like a set of greens for the foliage, and then a blue for the sky. I guess really a lot of these choices come down to your own style anyway, and how much detail you plan on having. For this piece, I'm just working in a canvas size of 100 by 100 pixels, which is relatively small, so a maximum of 16 colors feels about right for that space. The main reason I choose a canvas size around 100 pixels is because when you're making a wide scene like this, it inevitably just comes out really stylized and like pixely in that space, and I like that look. I like being able to see the individual squares that make it up, even when viewed from a distance, you know? Like the fact that the letters that spell out Kame House are actually just a single pixel each is hilarious to me. Yet if you're familiar with the location here, you can essentially still read it anyway, just by knowing what it is in context. And low resolution work also forces you into these situations that require like very particular problem solving. Like with these palm trees here, for example, it becomes sort of this little puzzle to figure out like, okay, what's the best way to create these shapes in this size with only these particular colors at my disposal? And I don't know, I just find something really like motivating and relaxing about having to work through that kind of stuff. The other thing that's nice about small canvas sizes, well, let's say it's just kind of like a tangential benefit, is that it generally takes less time to finish a piece. So like if you think about the area here, it's 100 by 100 pixels, so that's already a total of 10,000 pixels that I'm concerning myself with. If I were to double the canvas dimensions to 200 by 200, for example, that'd now be an area of 40,000 pixels, so like 4 times as large overall. So it certainly would take more time and effort to fill out that entire space. Again, the main reason for using a small canvas size should be that it suits the art direction you're looking for, but it's always nice when you can breeze through a piece as well and don't end up adding more detail than is necessary or fitting for a piece. Actually, another good example of finding the right balance within restrictions are the clouds that I'm making here. I started by joining together a solid layer of white circles to lay in a basic framework, and then zoomed in to do some fine-tuning to the individual shapes and like curvatures. From here, I created a checkerboard pattern of the white against the sky, which if you're working within a limited color palette is a really good way to get an additional color out of it, since it has an overall appearance of being like 50% between the two colors that make up that pattern. The other thing I tried was detailing the clouds with a bit of a swirly pattern, just to give them some interest. It was kind of okay, but I didn't really buy it enough. And the interesting look about the clouds was the interplay between the full white and the dithered pattern, so the swirls are eventually dropped at some point here. So with the remaining room in the sky, I added in a tiny Kid Goku on his flying Nimbus, which is basically this like little flying cloud that he zips around on. Actually, that's kind of the thing I've been loving about Dragon Ball. It's like one of those diverse worlds that so perfectly incorporates any kind of concept or theme that it wants to. Like there's elements of sci-fi and fantasy and martial arts, of course. And then there's also like military type characters and talking animals and all this sort of stuff. But it all seems to work together cohesively and nothing seems too out of place. I think what helps is that they just introduce new characters and concepts almost unapologetically, like with little to no justification. And the characters in the show all seem to believe and accept their world, so you watching it are just like, alright, that's how it is, huh? Anyway, this is getting to the end here, so let's go ahead and take a look at the final artwork of pixel art Kame House. Alright, so last minute I decided to reframe this piece with like a longer aspect ratio because I actually wanted to use it as a wallpaper for my phone. And I've never done that before with my own art. So I've also left a link to the image in the description and the comments if any of you want to grab that as a background as well. Anyway, let's finish this out with some CRT time. I feel like it's been a while since I've done that. So thank you for watching and take care and keep it square.